And I don't just mean for the Orioles out on the road trying to get it done in Detroit this week and Boston next week. It is the kickoff of the National Football League season this week. We call it New Year's Day around here, and a season of hope for the guys in purple to improve upon last year's 5-11 campaign. Got a guy here that is wrote a piece, and we've been talking about it all summer. I think it's the third time I've had him on since maybe April or May, where he began to work on the piece. I know it was a very well-shared piece in our community and via WNST over the weekend. And certainly something very near and dear to my heart and the 1996 Baltimore Ravens. And I know back on September 1st, we were all sharing our pictures of the Ravens-Raiders game from Memorial Stadium. And it's funny, some of us have aged. My hair has gone from like dark to silver. It's incredible over the last 20 years. Eric Edholm is the NFL writer at Yahoo Sports and the Shutdown Corner blog. You can follow his journey at Eric_Edholm. That's EDHOLM. Out of the fighting second city of Chicago, Illinois, where I saw Pearl Jam 2 weeks ago. But when his 96 Ravens piece came out, I was in Cologne, Germany, drinking Kolsch and reading it on my mobile device. It is a small world after all, isn't it, Eric Edholm?
Oh, well, we couldn't do that in 1996, but I was glad to hear that you were able to check it out while you were over there. And, I heard from some people on this thing, and I think the timing of it, I understand. It's on the eve of the NFL season and all that, so people are caught up in roster spots and things like that. But I'm glad people were able to enjoy it and have a little trip down memory lane.
Yeah, you can follow Eric out on Twitter at Eric_Edholm. By the way, what concert is that? What band is that? What venue is that picture from, man?
Okay, so I think if I'm on my Twitter page there, yeah.
There's someone playing a guitar in black and white, and I can't even figure it out. It looks a little Dylan-y.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what it is, though.
Okay, so that is Fish finishing up their set the other day, because I had Pink Floyd until about 3 days ago.
I remember that, yes. Yep, little Gilmore, yep.
Yeah, so that's a picture of Fish, 3 of the 4 members watching the 4th guy finish the show with a bass solo, which is, of course, how you finish every show, right? A bass solo to finish. Yeah, so kind of an unusual way to finish the show the other day out in Colorado. They did a couple of shows out there. I just love the photo, right? The black and white, kind of a stark contrast, and
it looks like it's from 1964 at some sort of Beatles show. Yeah, it's a little bizarre, but hey, Fish is bizarre. I don't want to say Fish stinks, but it's just not my thing. I was seeing. I'm a Springsteen guy. I'm going to be in Philadelphia all week with Springsteen. That's who I am. So I put those pictures up.
I am too, man, and they've played together. Fish and Springsteen have actually performed together. So maybe I'll try to turn you on to that little combination.
I just know something Trey, Anna, somebody, and that's about all I know for you.
Right, yeah.
All right, so it's football season, bro, and we're Ravens fans, and here come the Buffalo Bills. And look, when the schedule comes out, you see Bills, then we play in Cleveland, then we play in Jacksonville. There is some level of expectation on history alone, not based on anything else, that the Ravens could be 3-0 3 weeks from now if they're going to be a factor this year. If they're going to be an 11, 12-win, 10-win, playoff-bound team, there is a movement afoot in Owings Mills that they could be 3-0 by the end of the month. What say you, Eric, having watched a little bit of this camp activity over the last 6 weeks?
Yeah, right. Obviously, there's been some shuffling at running back, and we had to kind of see for our own eyes, okay, is Joe Flacco healthy? Yes, he seems to be. Is that offensive line going to work? Are all these injured guys going to come back and be, at top effectiveness? But we still don't know on all of them, right? I mean, we're still kind of holding our breath that Steve Smith can turn in a terrific final season and all that. Defensively, even with a couple of injuries and a couple things that they were expecting to have and don't have, there's still a measure of optimism. It's funny, though. I still feel like the Ravens are kind of flying below the radar a little bit. And then when you do look at the schedule, you say, all right, Cleveland, let's make that a W, right? I understand. The optimism and all that, that's a W for me.
I've met the Cleveland Browns, yes. I mean, I'm familiar with their operation. There's no reason. Yeah. I mean, you lose that game in week 2, you start to look like a team flopping a little bit.
Right. I absolutely agree. And Cleveland could win week 1. I mean, they're facing Carson Wentz. I mean, they can start out 1-0, but I think the Ravens win that game. Second one is Jacksonville, right? I mean, because this is a team that everybody has been hyping up all season. They get essentially the 2 first-round draft picks with Miles Jackson on round 2. They get Dante Fowler back. It's an offense that at times went nuclear last year. They add some pieces in free agency. it's a team with some big expectations. I don't know how realistic some of them are.
Well, we'll find out on Sunday, right? They get the Packers week 1. Like, show me that at home you can hang in with the Packers, and I'll start to think about you being a 10-win football team, even in a division that's, quite frankly, its own question mark in the AFC South.
Oh, yeah. Oh, right. There's no doubt about it. I mean, if they're going to win 10 games, this is the division to do it in. And Jalen Ramsey on Jordy Nelson week 1, that's a tough one. I mean, being able to block Clay Matthews with a new left tackle and everything. So there's still some roadmaps. I mean, some pitfalls, but rather I think Jacksonville will give Green Bay a good game in week 1, and then we'll start to see, okay, how many actual wins can they pile up after that? So that's a tricky one. The Bills are not a joke. I mean, I keep thinking, look, I know there's all this stuff that's gone wrong this offseason. All their draft picks are falling like flies, but I still think they'll be competitive. And Tyrod Taylor is a good quarterback. So 2-1 is very possible. 3-0, maybe that's a little much, though.
Well, every time we talk about the Bills, we talk about their offseason of turmoil from guys having problems on the field, off the field, getting healthy, draft picks not getting on the field, Shaq Lawson, all of the store wrangling, the whole thing. And then there's just a general bluster of wrecks in any given season. I don't know that thoughts are even in Buffalo that team can win 10 games this year. It looks more like a bad team to me than a good team to me.
It's funny because, if you talk to the analytics folks, the people who crunch the numbers and read this stuff, and I mean, you still, I'm not thinking they're 5-11 bad, but another 7-9 season would not stun me. And as good as I think Tyrod Taylor is, and I maybe even think he's better than most people do, and Sammy Watkins could be great, and LaShawn McCoy and all these guys. They still have issues defensively. They still have that offensive line, which is an incomplete unit. They still don't really have a complete team right now. So, I don't know. The run game will be good. There'll be elements of this team that will be tough to beat, but I'm still not buying in fully on this Bills club.
He is Eric Edholm of the Shutdown Corner blog. You can follow his journey out on Yahoo Sports, covering the National Football League and getting you ready for the week. Yahoo does a great job of doing that as well. And you can follow along on the internet at Eric_Edholm on Twitter. For our direct competitors, and I hadn't really thought much about this through the preseason, and now that there's a game here, right? I mean, it is Cincinnati and Pittsburgh sort of in the way, and the Ravens will have 4 weekends to figure that out when we play those teams, especially at the end of the season. We don't even see Pittsburgh until November, but Cincinnati has a 1 o'clock game against the Jets. Then on Monday night, Pittsburgh has to go to Washington. Washington and the Jets are 2 interesting teams, and playing at home this week where there is a level of expectation. The Jets nearly made the playoffs, if not for a choke last year. The Washington Redskins were a division champ and probably are expected to be that again, given where Romo is and where the Giants are and where the Eagles aren't at this point with Carson Wentz. Cincinnati at the Jets, Pittsburgh at Washington. I'm going to learn a lot about the Bengals and the Steelers this weekend in games on the road that are a little bit perilous for them. Those are not easy wins for those 2 franchises.
Yeah, I think you're right. I mean, you look at the Bengals and obviously the long playoff streak and all that stuff that they have hanging over their head. They're going to try to get back to pounding the football early, especially without Tyler Eifert. That's the key. I mean, they don't have that red zone element, that true complement to A.J. Green. They lose Marvin Jones. They lose Mohamed Sanu in the offseason. They're down a few receivers, a few pass catchers. So, to me, it's going to be about the running backs early, especially with Sheldon Richardson suspended for that opener with the Jets. They're going to have to get back to ramming the football down people's throats and also throwing to the backs, too. And I think Jeremy Hill will be the power, and Gio Bernard is the kind of the offset guy a little bit, the finesse, if you will. So I still think they can go in there and get a win week 1. We'll see about that. But you're right. I mean, Pittsburgh, I wouldn't say it's, you're not, the Redskins aren't sneaking up on people because they did host a playoff game a year ago. But, I don't think there are a lot of people just saying, okay, they've arrived. This is a legitimate team, but they do have some talent. Preston Smith, I think, is going to be a breakout player this year. He's one of the guys I spotlighted this week for our preview week. And then, I say, okay, they added a good talented cornerback in Josh Norman this offseason. They added some little pieces here that you go, okay, I see the big picture coming together a little bit. Are they still maybe a year away from being really good? Sure. Cousins has to prove it. This is a big season for him. I mean, I know he's making $19 million. You want to make the big boy bucks, though, the long-term deal? go out and beat the Steelers in week 1. Go out and win that division the second year in a row. So there's kind of that next level element with both the Jets and the Redskins. Like, they were okay. They were pretty good last year. Now show us that you belong.
I think it's kind of kinky in week 1 that I have to root for the Redskins because, I do that about as often as I see a comet at this point. But, but the part of the Steelers and the part of the Bengals in their being diminished to some degree in the offseason, it's easy to talk about the things they don't have. And as you've pointed out, even with Sheldon Richardson, this has become perilous for the league and jurisprudence when the first week or the first 4 weeks, if you're Tom Brady or if you're someone that's peed dirty or found yourself on the wrong side of Roger Goodell or the law in the offseason, that many, many teams are beginning their season not with injuries like, we've seen where guys are working their way back or they got dinged during training camp, but just off the field, I'm healthy, but I'm not allowed to participate because I peed dirty. The Ravens have a couple of tight ends in that situation, and there's just a bunch of guys around the periphery. It feels like every team has somebody that has, slapped their girlfriend, got caught peeing dirty, they smoked some weed, they had a gun, all of those things, and you don't even get a full complement of the teams this week. There's almost a jurisprudence report right next to the injury report.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I think, from the NFL's perspective, their thinking is, well, hey, everyone's just so glad football's back. They're not going to notice that, X player's out or Y player's out, which is, of course, wrong. But to a degree, they're sort of right in the sense that, hey, teams are excited about the season. Everybody's 0-0. Everybody's in first place. There is that optimism. If there's ever a time to sort of put that aside a little bit from a fan perspective, now is this is the time. So,
but you do want lesser competition in week 1 just because somebody in your team's going to be suspended. Just go around the league.
Absolutely.
This is why the old ball coaches used to schedule Pacific and Broken Pelvis State in week 1 because they had their own problems with their chancellor and some guy cut in class and they couldn't put him on the field. And they're like, well, we're going to win 70-7 anyway. But in the NFL, there is none of that. In the NFL, you got to go play week 1, and if you're the Jets or you're the Bills and you're playing tough competition without your best players, such is the name of the game about not getting in trouble in the offseason.
Well, and let's use Bengals Jets as an example. So the loser of that game, there could be a key tiebreaker when we come to playoff time. So week 1 matters just as much. You're right. Obviously, LSU has no problem suspending that kid who took the cheap shot, right? They go, we're going to take a stance and suspend him for a game. They're playing like Jacksonville State or Wyoming or whoever. That doesn't affect them one bit to suspend the offensive guard for that game. So yeah, the NFL, you lose a guy early, that week 1 or week 2 or week 3 game could end up being a huge tiebreaker later. It could be the difference between getting in the playoffs and losing, home field advantage or any of that stuff. So it's huge. Let's not overplay this. We could look back and say, that was a pretty big difference between getting in and not, or whatever, hosting a game or not hosting a game.
I've been around here a long time, and, the Ravens have expectations every year that they could be a playoff team. We haven't had a lot, other than that dark period like in 2002 after the breakup, and, Billick and Newsom said, look, we're going to go younger here. We're going to break this thing up when the Woodsons and the Saraguses and the Burnetts left. But we've had 20 years here, 17 years of expectations. I'll tell you what, Philadelphia, it's been like that too. And, through all the Donovan McNabb and all the bitching and the Andy Reid and all that, I don't know that we've ever entered a season where you look at the Eagles and say, I don't know how they're going to win 4 games.
Yeah, right. I'd say, okay, they can lean on Jim Schwartz's defense. I think they'll be pretty good, especially that front seven. Does the secondary maybe give me a little pause, or certainly cornerback does? I think the safeties are good. But, yeah, I think they'll win a certain number of games on that defense alone. But then you start asking, okay, Carson Wentz, 25 preseason throws. The kid didn't even have 25 starts at the 1AA level.
He didn't think he was going to be playing 5 days ago, which is insane, right?
I know.
What are they doing up there? No franchise has been more bizarre in their activities, especially with quarterbacks, than that franchise.
Oh, I'd love to do some kind of flow chart, right, to look at their 2014 roster and what looked like a pretty good infrastructure, right? The Chips seem to have things going in the right direction. And then these wild changes, guys who they added since then are already gone, right? DeMarco Murray and all those guys. They Now they make a move where they get Dorial Green-Beckham. You say, okay, I can see why you'd give an offensive lineman who's not a starter for a first-round type of talent at wide receiver. I get that. I kind of get why they would want to get multiple draft picks for Sam Bradford. I mean, the thought process makes sense, but then you say, okay, what is the plan though? Because you were talking up Sam Bradford all year and saying this is our guy, this is who's starting. We know when we want to get Carson Wentz in there. They did not want to get Carson Wentz in there week one, even against Cleveland. I'm sorry, that was not the plan, and so they veered from it. And you better be prepared for the consequences. You better understand that you may not have 14 first downs against a bad defense even. So this is my concern, and it sounds like it's yours too.
Well, and I think every team has some concerns this time of year. Even if Carolina at 15-1, and we try to figure out who the good teams are going to be here this year. Some thoughts. Eric Edholm joining us here from Yahoo. Who are the best teams in your mind? Who are the teams you're expecting to see in Houston in February?
Well, let's start with Carolina because they are good again, and they're going to win a lot of football games again. Do I think they're going to go 15-1? No, I don't. Could I see something between 11 and 13 wins again this year? Absolutely. I don't think it's a complete division yet. I do think there's some better teams like the Buccaneers. They're kind of one of my, surprise teams this year. So Buccaneers will maybe beat them once, and, they may lose a game at New Orleans or whatever, but this is still a Carolina team that's going to win a lot of football games. But I think the team in the NFC to beat, and I've been told I'm wrong on this, of course, but I think it's Seattle. I know everyone's on the Arizona bandwagon, and I get it. I mean, you look at that defense, you see some of the pieces that are coming together offensively, and it makes a lot of sense. But Carson Palmer's giving me the willies, and I just can't get behind that guy all the way. He was so great last season. The playoff meltdown, I'm thinking, all right, he'll turn a page. He's got his contract figured out.
At some point, it's going to be like Jim Plunkett, right? At some point, he's going to get there. He's going to get there,
I don't know. The preseason, he's looked bad. They haven't given the starters many reps. I know they get Garoppolo instead of Brady week one, but there's something just holding me back a little bit. Can they win some games in spite of him? Absolutely. They're that talented, but I'm not on the Palmer bandwagon this year.
I'm not on the Carolina bandwagon. Isn't that funny? I mean, maybe it's just because I don't like that kid. You know what I mean? And I didn't like him before the press conference. I don't like him. Maybe it's just because in the WWE pantheon, he's just the character I root against. You know what I mean? For what he just is. I mean, and I don't hold that back. There's nothing about his act that I don't want to see somebody give him the old forearm shiver and and tackle him behind the line of scrimmage. So because of that, I've really learned to dislike the Carolina Panthers. So there's a little part of me that wants to discount them, but they were 15-1 last year. They were a freight train.
I mean, look, I love the comparison there, the wrestling thing, because everyone wants to say, okay, if you dislike Cam Newton, you must be a racist. No. I hated John Elway growing up. I was watching him tear up every team that I ever cared about, and there was something about that smirk, that smug look on his face. To me, Cam Newton is the John Elway of this generation. I really believe it. And he has to obviously lose multiple Super Bowls to get to that level, but also play for a long time to get to that level. But to me, he's got that kind of that smirk, and you go, oh my goodness. I respect the hell out of the kid because he's come a long way. He really, really has.
He's a hell of a player, but, it kind of reminded me of Butchie in A Christmas Story. Once he got his nose bloodied a little bit, he ran off and cried. And for that's a real character deficiency for me in the National Football League. And you and I hang out in these locker rooms with guys. That's not a good character trait. It's not a character trait that the Joe Flacco's and the Tom Brady's sort of have. You know what I mean?
I get it. Yeah, no, I think there's an element of that. And there are people – he's not universally beloved by his teammates. I don't even think Tom Brady is, but do you have their respect? I think that's really the biggest thing. Do they believe in you to deliver in crunch time? I'm going to guess most Panthers believe in Cam Newton. Most guys who have seen him work every day. But, yeah, I know what you're saying. There is that element about him that I think from afar looks kind of bad. And until he wins that big one, quote-unquote, that there will be that sliver of doubt about him.
Well, the teams that are changing quarterbacks, and obviously Denver's one of them, Houston's one of them. Now Minnesota, obviously Sam Bradford, another
Crazy.
team that we thought was on, the cusp of doing some cool things with Bridgewater. The quarterbacks are how we judge these teams, and if it doesn't pass the sniff test, if you don't think Tyrod Taylor's an upper echelon quarterback, you have a hard time believing they're going to win 12 football games. I don't think anybody has a hard time believing Carolina could win 12 football games this year. But then there's like Denver and Houston and Kansas City and these other teams out there that we always find some way to denigrate their quarterback until they actually do it. Houston's probably the greatest story of the offseason because they think they've got an upper echelon quarterback. Time will tell.
Yeah, and to your point, too, I mean, like Denver did not get great quarterback play for most of the last season. And so now everybody thinks it's a trend. Well, hey, last year the Broncos proved if you have a great defense, you can win. To me, that whole season for the Broncos, it was like a complete one-off performance, right? We're never going to probably see that in that form again. I just don't think we are. Where, the quarterback play was almost hilariously bad at some points with Peyton. And Osweiler was just kind of mediocre to me. I mean, he was fine. He was okay. But, yeah, now you start to say, okay, well, we can understand the idea of a team having a little turmoil at quarterback winning a Super Bowl. We can, but to me, if Houston is going to rise up, if the Cincinnati Bengals are going to rise up, they still need some pretty top-shelf play at that position. And, the Texans are really interesting because I think Bill O'Brien is a very, very good coach. And I think that defense is coming around, and it's going to be one of those top 10 units. Clowney, I think, is going to step up. I think John Simon's going to be a breakout guy for Ravens people who remember him. But that offense certainly has to produce more big plays. I mean, that was the thing. They were the absolute worst big play offense in the league last year. O'Brien manufactured everything. So, there's a lot of pressure on Osweiler to be something, close to an $18 million quarterback.
He is Eric at home. He inked a wonderful retrospective through the words of myself and about 20 or 30 others on the 1996 Ravens. You can find him on Yahoo as well as Eric_at home. That's EDHOLM out of the second city of Chicago, Illinois. All right, so Super Bowl matchup, you say whom versus whom?
All right, so I kind of tipped my hand earlier, right?
You gave me Seattle. You gave me Seattle.
Yeah, that's kind of my team this year. I mean, I'm not rooting for them, obviously, but I really believe if they get the offensive line together, I think they can make it to Houston. Now, I also may have kind of tipped my hand a second ago, and I think people have told me, no, you're wrong. They got worse in the offseason. They're not the same team, but I think the Cincinnati Bengals have a pass. And I think they can get there if they get back to getting that power run game going. That defense is still good, and I know they have the question marks of poise and character and mental toughness and all that stuff. For some reason, I kind of see them figuring that stuff out, even with a really tough schedule. So they might be, 5-4 at midseason, but I think this is a team that's built to last. So I'm going to go a little off schedule here, and I see the Bengals not only end their playoff streak, they haven't won one since I think January of '91. And they get to the Super Bowl this year, and Andy Dalton's playing for a Super Bowl about 2 hours down the road from where he grew up. How about that?
All right, man. Chili for all of my friends there. Indigestion for everybody. Eric, great having you on, man. I hope that our paths cross at some point during the course of the season. I know everybody in our audience really enjoyed the 96 retrospective. And I tell you what, I definitely, peed my pants a few times with some of the stories. Some of the stories, and there were also stories that I did not know. So when you're teaching me stuff about that team, that's when I dig it the most. And I know you talked to most of the members of that 96 team, and I know it was a big project for you.
It was, and I appreciate all the help you gave me. You pointed me some directions that I didn't know about. So it was always, everybody I talked to had great perspective, and everybody helped me out in some way. There were one or two guys who weren't crazy about talking, but it was an absolute blast, and thank you so much for sending that out.
And between you and me, I think we're never going to find Vinny Testaverde, right?
I don't think so, man.
He's gone forever. He is in the witness protection program, I think, right?
Oh, yeah. No one sees it. Kevin Byrne has talked to him. I do know that. He has spoken to Vinny in the last year. That's about the only guy who's confirmed to to have seen him alive at this point.
Vinny is alive, just not on Twitter. Eric, great having you on, man. Be well, and I'm sure our paths will cross. Enjoy football, right? I mean, this is what we spend the whole year waiting for this. So it really is has a little Christmas morning feeling for all of us, I think.
Yeah, it's cool, man. We spent all off season gearing up and talking about these teams. Now we get to see them play. And there will be a few shockers in week one that kind of throw us for a loop. So we're back into that cycle again.
I love when these national games, like I get to root against Cam Newton on Thursday. I get to root against Tom Brady's outfit on Sunday night. I get to root against the Steelers. I have to root for the Redskins. But, I'm getting that passion built back up because I don't play fantasy football. People say to me, yeah, you play fantasy? I said, no, I got a fantasy team. They're called the Ravens. When they win, I had a good week. When they lose, I had a bad week, So I kind of leave it at that.
I think it's going to be a fun week. I think we're going to see some interesting stuff with all the quarterback turmoil. Someone's going down this week that we don't expect to go down. So, yeah, you're right. This is all. I play fantasy football. I don't invest too much in it. I love covering the league. I have so much fun being a fan of all 32 teams, so to speak. So, yeah, I really enjoy this time of year.
Yeah, I'm a fan of everyone except, let's see, the Steelers, the Bengals, the Patriots, the Red. Yeah, I can go through the list.
Teams.
Yeah, and the rest I'm neutral on. It's fine. I mean, whatever New Orleans decides to do, good for them, Yeah. Hey, take care of yourself, man.
Yeah, they're like skim milk. You can't be too offended by them.
Yeah, I mean, rest up. What's not to like about Drew Brees at this point? Hey, take care of yourself. Great having you on, man.
All right, Nestor, see you, man.
Eric Edholm from Yahoo Sports and the Shutdown Corner blog. You can follow him at Eric_Edholm. That's EDHOLM. No one covers the league better than him, and that is fish with a PH. Not like fat with a PH on the front of his Twitter as well. You can find me out in the Bayou Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world on your mobile device by downloading the TuneIn Radio app. We come in crystal clear from wherever you are. Our morning newspaper hits your email inbox, and that's powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. Every morning at 7 a.m., we bring you all the headlines, all the scores, standing stats, all that great stuff available at WNST.net. And finally, our breaking news happens first on the WNST text service. Over the weekend, I got my breaking news in Germany, even 6 hours ahead. I found that Justin Forsett got cut, signed again, back on the team, and we gave you all the cuts. And if there's any breaking news with the Orioles and ups and downs as they head to Detroit this weekend, you will get that as well via our tech service, all brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard. Dennis will be here hosting some radio from 3 until 5 and getting you ready for the season. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.